Okay, now, after Germany becomes unified and becomes a new country in 1871, then we have a period of almost 20 years where Otto von Bismarck is running the diplomatic relations of Germany with other countries throughout Europe. So, to begin, we're going to go back to the chapter outline, and we're going to go to page 136 in the chapter outline. Now, in the chapter outline on that page, you're going to look at the last section here on the German Empire. Pretty much all you got to do is read it. There's nothing we're going to write right now about it, but it will explain kind of this period of time where Bismarck is working to make Germany the strongest country. So take a moment and read the German Empire, and it'll take you all probably about 2 to 3 minutes. So if you need to, go ahead and stop the video right now and then just restart when everybody seems to be about done. Okay, now, Bismarck, probably within the top 2 figures I would think of German history, of someone who brings Germany to significance during this period of time. As much as people don't like to talk about Hitler being a successful leader, he was pretty successful in getting Germany to the pinnacle of power, which they became. Now, Bismarck, he is super important because he is considered the architect of the German Empire. So, as Bismarck is working as the Chancellor of Germany, Wilhelm I is now the Emperor, Emperor Wilhelm. But what Bismarck really does is he begins to focus on the economy and the military of Germany. So they become very, very much industrialized. By 1890, they're the most industrialized nation in Europe, even though they had a significant, they weren't anywhere near Britain. By the 1850s, Britain was way ahead, but by 1890, they kick it into high gear and they will become very productive and industrialized. So he actually does some of the same things that Napoleon did during his reign, such as developing a universal German civil criminal code. It also established a imperial bank to help lend money to different companies and businesses. All male citizens were required military service to be part of the German military, and also they used tariffs to keep other countries from poaching on German industry. Now, there's a new ism happening in Europe at the time, socialism, and we'll deal with that within this lesson, and then in a chapter down the line, we'll deal with socialism as well. But because they're becoming industrialized, the same problems occur with child labor and when working labor and hours and pay and things like that. So there's this movement of socialism where the German workers, they begin to ask for more things from the government, and Bismarck will have to respond in order to keep the country moving in a certain direction. So now what we're going to do, we're going to go to the chapter outline, and you will need your notebook for this. The chapter outline, I'm sorry, actually we're not going to be in the chapter outline. There's a handout called The German Empire that the substitute will pass out to you. And this is like a one-page summary of many of the big things that happened with Germany during this period of time. So for you, in your notebook, the title is Bismarck Attacks. Divide the page, or you can put them on top of each other, whichever you like. You're going to read paragraphs 3, 4, and 5. And within 3, 4, and 5, you will read about how Bismarck will have some incidents dealing with Catholics and eventually incidents dealing with socialists. And what you need to do is just kind of read it and outline what exactly is taking place here, and that's why it's called Bismarck attacks, because he finds these groups to be on in his opposition, so he finds ways to end up going after them. So you can go ahead and stop the tape. It'll probably take about, I would say, about 10 minutes or so, and then you can restart the tape. Okay, now what I would like is if we could have one or two students volunteer to explain to us the attack on the Catholics, followed by the attacks on socialism. You can hopefully put it into your own words, and then I'll talk about some of the different things that occur here. So if you need, you can stop the tape for a couple minutes. So have a couple students maybe explain what happens here with Bismarck. Okay, now what is going on is this. During this period of time, there is a what we call Kulturkampf, which is Bismarck's attack on the Catholics within the German state. And what it comes down to is the church, the Catholic Church, they are not supportive of this move to unify Germany. Because what happened was the Catholic Church sees this as a movement against religion, because what Bismarck was requiring of people was that their loyalty be to the state first and to the church second, while the church wants it the other way. They want the loyalty of people to be to the church. So for a while, Bismarck will go after some of these different groups that he feels their allegiance is not to him. That is called Kulturkampf. Now, luckily for the Catholics, though, another group comes into the target of Bismarck, and that'll be the socialists. Socialism, the idea that government needs to provide more to the people, more things need to be kind of shared. The wealth of the nation, the major industries needs to be regulated. More things need to be given to the workers. And with that on the rise, Bismarck decides to beat them to any sort of revolution by passing some socialist reforms, like granting workmen's compensation to people, old age pensions, medical protection, if you're injured on the job, things like that. So these two groups he's able to go after and pretty much kind of stop them before any major revolutions take place, and that'll be what we call Kulturkampf during the time of Bismarck. All right, the last thing is I want you to go back to the reading, and you're going to read the last three paragraphs, which are paragraphs 6, 7, and 8. This will explain what exactly occurs here with the fall of Bismarck. And you don't need to write anything down right now, but just go ahead and read it. So go ahead and stop. Okay, now what you do need to copy is this. Okay, so this last slide you put in your notebook. So I'll go ahead and give you a couple minutes here that you can start copying it. It's called Bismarck's Fall, and then I will do a brief summary for you, and that pretty much will take care of this. All right, so go ahead and copy it down. Okay, now finishing out Bismarck. So eventually Wilhelm I dies. He had a son. His son dies, and eventually the crown passes to his grandson Wilhelm II. Now Wilhelm II was a believer in divine right, and he did not like Bismarck. He pretty much resented all the power that Bismarck had during the unification process of Germany. So eventually in 1890, when Bismarck is getting quite old, Wilhelm II makes the decision to dismiss Bismarck from his position. And that's pretty much the last you hear of Bismarck. He doesn't have some triumphant return or anything like that. So what we really see about Bismarck is that he was really the political leader of Europe from about 1861 to about 1890. And he will turn Germany into the strongest industrial nation in Europe. And eventually what we will see is Because Bismarck is gone, Wilhelm II is not as good of a politician as Bismarck, and he's not going to keep the same relations with these countries that Bismarck had, and eventually we'll see World War One begin, because Germany becomes a superpower pretty much, and the countries of Europe do not know how to react to that. Britain, France, Russia, and eventually that leads to World War One occurring. Okay, so that is it for the rise of Germany during the 1870s, 80s, and into the 1890s a little bit. Okay, so you can go ahead and stop the tape.